Today we're doing a lesson on graphing linear equations from standard form. If you haven't printed off the video guide, go ahead and pause the video, print it, and then come back so that you have the notes to do with us. On our last lesson, we graphed linear equations from slope-intercept form. So today we're doing from standard form. Now, you should have already viewed the lesson on finding slope and y-intercept from standard form. We are going to apply those concepts to what we are doing today. So if you haven't seen that, you need to take a look at that and then come back. So remember standard form, when we're looking at an equation that has standard form, it doesn't really give us any information. It doesn't give us the slope, it doesn't give us the y-intercept, it doesn't give us anything to help us graph it. So what we had to do was actually solve the equation for y, which is exactly what we're going to be doing today. So let's take a look at problem number 1. Our equation is x minus 2y equals negative 10. Because this equation is not in slope-intercept form, I have to solve it for y, put it in slope-intercept form, and then I'll be able to graph it. Okay, so we're kind of applying two things that we've learned to one problem. Solving it for y, putting it in slope-intercept form, and then what we learned in our last lesson, graphing. So to solve this, I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 in front of the x. We need to remove the 1x first to get y by itself. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 1x from both sides. 1x minus 1x is just 0, they cancel. I get negative 2y equals. Remember, slope-intercept form, the x term comes first and then the whole number. So negative 1x comes first, and then negative 10 or minus 10 comes after that. From here, we need to get y by itself. So I need to divide by negative 2. Now remember, when you divide, make sure you divide everything. All three terms get divided by negative 2. So I have y equals negative 1 divided by negative 2. That's going to give me a decimal if I actually divide it. So I'm going to leave it as a fraction, but I am going to simplify the negative over a negative. A negative divided by a negative is a positive 1/2 x. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 is positive 5. So now that I've solved it for y, it's in slope-intercept form and I can graph it. So my slope is going to be positive 1/2 and my y-intercept is going to be a positive 5 because it's plus 5. Now remember, graph the y-intercept first. So if my y-intercept is positive 5, I go to positive 5 on my graph and I put a point. Now my slope is positive 1/2. Remember, that's rise over run. So that means if the top number is a positive 1, that means I go up 1. So I go up 1 place. I don't actually put a point there because I still need to do the run. The run is positive 2, so that means I go to the right 2 and I put my point. Now remember, we can also do the opposite of 1/2. The opposite would be negative 1 over negative 2. Make sure you make both numbers the opposite. So positive 1 becomes negative 1, positive 2 becomes negative 2. So I can go the opposite direction. A negative 1 means to go down 1, a negative 2 is to the left 2. Okay? Because remember, the number on top is up or down, the number on bottom is left or right. And I can do that again. Go down 1 to the left 2. Down 1 to the left 2. So once I have all my points, I go ahead and connect them with the straight line. We put arrows at the end to demonstrate that this goes on forever. I just don't have enough room to show it. And that's our graph. It was supposed to be a positive slope. Mine's a positive slope. So solve for y first and then graph it. For problem number 2, our equation is 4x minus y equals 0. Again, this is not in the proper form. It's not solved for y, so I need to solve it for y and then I can graph it. So to solve this for y, cancel out the 4x first. To cancel out a positive 4x, I am going to subtract 4x from both sides. They cancel. I get negative 1y, or just negative y, means the same thing, equals the x term comes next, so negative 4x, and then just plus 0 at the end. I like to leave the plus 0 because I like to remember that that is my y-intercept, okay? You technically could leave it off because negative 4x plus 0 is just negative 4x, but I like to have it there so I don't forget about it. And after that, we need to divide. Divide everything by negative 1. So they cancel. I get y equals negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4x. 0 divided by negative 1 is just 0. So my slope is going to be positive 4 over 1. Make sure you make it into a fraction. Positive 4 over 1. The y-intercept is just 0. Always graph your y-intercept first. Okay, so 0 comes first. The y-intercept is 0, so I just go to 0. There we go. My slope is positive 4 over positive 1. Well, the top is my rise, up and down, so I need to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 places. The run is positive 1, so I go to the right 1 place. I can't do it again because I run out of room. So I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite. 4. Instead of positive 4, I'll make it negative 4. Instead of positive 1, I'll make it negative 1. So that means start at the y-intercept, go down 4, and to the left 1. And then we just connect our points with a straight line. Arrows at the end. Remember, the points in between are also answers. We just don't account for all of those as far as like actually making points because they're fractions, but they are still part of the solution for our equation, 4x minus y equals 0. For number 3, our equation is x plus 2y equals negative 8. Just like the other two, we have to solve this for y first, and then we can graph it. So I'm going to make this a 1x, so I don't forget. Cancel out the x first. So instead of positive 1x, I'll make it negative 1x. So they cancel. I get 2y equals. Over here, always put your x term first. So negative 1x comes first, and then the negative 8, or the minus 8. After that, we divide everything by 2. They cancel. We get y equals negative 1 over 2 is just negative 1/2 x. Can't simplify it, not going to change it. Just leave it negative 1/2. Negative 8 over 2, that I can simplify. I can actually divide that. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So my slope for this equation is negative 1/2. My y-intercept is negative 4. Graph your y-intercept first. So I'm going to go to negative 4 on the y-axis, put my first point. After that, I'm going to do my slope, negative 1 over positive 2. So that means I go down 1 to the right 2. And we can do that again, down 1 to the right 2. So from there we run out of room, so let's do the opposite. The opposite would be, so 4, instead of negative 1, make it positive 1. Instead of positive 2, make it negative 2. So we're going to go up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2, up 1 to the left 2. And then we can connect our points with a line. Okay, so it's a negative slope, it's going downhill. And that would be our graph for number 3. At this time, go ahead and pause the video. Try number 4 on your own, solve it, graph it, and then come back and check your answer. For problem number 4, I solved, I got y equals negative 3/4 x plus 3. My slope was negative 3/4, or 3 over negative 4, and my y-intercept was positive 3. So when I graphed them, I did the 3 first. I went down 3 to the right 4, and then I also went up 3 to the left 4. So your graph should look something like this. And that ends our lesson on graphing linear equations from standard form.